For those of you on today, and we'll hope that we get a few more people coming on, what this Steph and I are doing, we started last Monday, and Steph covered the duties to realtors, and it had a lot to do with how we treat one another, what are the ethical ways that we work together, along with professional standards list. But some of the things in the kind of market that we've been in today are testing the patience of a lot of agents. And so Steph and I thought it would be really good to review this, not so much thinking that our agents are not following the code of ethics, but to remind you what the code of ethics are when you're dealing with agents, other co-broke agents, and sometimes, kind of hard to deal with sometimes. So if we remind everybody about what the code of ethics are, as I said last Monday, Steph went over the third section of the code of ethics, which is duties to realtors, to one another in this business. I'm going to start today with the number one branch being duties to clients and customers. And so if we go to the next, this is the first section, and it's talking about what our relationship is with our customers and our clients. It describes the difference between a customer and a client, and it talks about what our duties are to our customers and clients. It's the most important because they put it first. There are 9 articles under this duties to customers and clients. And I'm basically going to concentrate on Article 1 because there are quite a few standards of practices in Article 1, and then just quickly run through the rest because they really just deal with one standard. But in Article 1 of 9, there are 9 standards, I believe, or no, 13 standards. So here we're going to talk about Article 1, and it's something that we all have to kind of put our heads around, that when we're working with our client, our duty is to protect and preserve the interests of our client. And there are 16 standards of practices in Article 1. They feel that it's very important if you are taking on the responsibility of representing a buyer or a seller in some of the most expensive outlays they're ever going to produce, that we understand that we're representing them as a client. We have a fiduciary duty to them. And these code of ethics, these 16 standards of practices in the first part, explain some of what our duties are. Now, I've summarized them. I haven't listed all 16 standards of practices, but I've picked out the ones that I think are important, especially in today's market. So I'm going to run through these. Now, this is Article 1. There are 9 articles in this duties to customers and clients. So remind realtors in attempting to get a listing not to mislead the owner to market value. Well, it's kind of hard to do today when the market value is hard to predict. You may represent the buyer and the seller in the same transaction only after full disclosure and informed consent. We call that dual agency. And I'm pretty much against dual agency because a lot of times the realtors aren't fully explaining what dual agency means and not necessarily getting informed consent. But you can tell your seller or your buyer, we may be in a position where we will be in dual agency, and this is what it will mean to you. Another one is realtors shall submit offers and counteroffers objectively and as quickly as possible. That has been another thing that's been challenged in this market time. Sellers are asking for a specific date to be presented their offers and working with counteroffers. But it is our duty, if the seller is not directing, to absolutely submit offers as quickly as possible, not to wait or hold on to them unless under the seller's direction. Also, as listing brokers, realtors shall continue to submit to seller all offers and counteroffers until closing. And this is something that really doesn't come up very much, but it's been interesting in some of the cases that Steph and I are fielding, that a seller will look for a certain date to be presented all his offers. And then some offers come in after that date. And what this is reminding us is that the realtor is required to submit all offers until closing. So you say, you can't take on the assumption, well, they've already accepted one, so they're not accepting anymore. It's true, they may, but they want to continue to see all their offers. The obligation of the realtors is to preserve, and this is really important, preserve confidential information during their agency relationship or following termination. I've been getting some calls where people are calling in about a deal that closed a while ago and they want a copy of some of the terms, or they want a copy of the inspection report or a vendor's report or something. And all of these are considered confidential information with a client, and that obligation lasts even after the relationship is over. Okay, let's look at some more standards of practices just in Article 1. Whether entering into a listing contract or a buyer agency agreement, realtors must advise potential clients of the amount of compensation to be paid by the client. Making sure that the client understands the payment in a buyer agency and the payment of the amount of compensation in a listing agreement. Not to assume that the seller understands that, or it's really the seller doesn't care as long as they're paying their full commission, they don't care where it's going. You must really advise your potential clients, as if you're going into a buyer agency or a listing, what that compensation means and how it's broken down. Advise the client of the company's policy regarding cooperation, meaning that we are to cooperate with one another and the role that the MLS plays in our business. Another one is to advise the potential of acting as a dual agent. What I mentioned before, the meaning of that. It can come up if you are representing both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. That means that you have to drop back and really become neutral to both of those clients. And either one of those clients may not like that.
Can I ask a question about this?
Of course.
This is Dan. So hold on, I'm going to turn on my video. Sitting on the couch. Hi.
Hi, Dan.
So my question is on that, representing both buyers and sellers. So before you go to list, you're identifying your agency relationship with the listing, with the seller.
Mm-hmm.
So in the event that a buyer comes to you and says, hey, I don't have an agent, I'd like for you to work with me. You need to either, depending on the agency relationship with the seller, you may either need to push that off to another agent, correct? Or is that something you talk with the seller and you say, we're going to draft an amendment to say that I can represent both parties? That's question one. And then the second question would be, why would the seller at all want you to do this, considering then you need to remain neutral and no longer work in their best interests? Well, I mean, working in both parties' best interests.
Right. And that's my problem with dual agency.
Yeah.
Especially the seller who is listing his house with you, why would he want to drop back and be treated as a neutral party? And a lot of times, I don't think the seller or the buyer who's being dually represented really understands what that means. They still think they're going to get representation where they're not. The choice is better to have designated agency. And that means that both your buyer and your seller in those 3 check boxes have checked the first box, which means they agree to multiple representation and they agree with designated agency. And now you can pick any agent in Keller Williams in this multiple representation part to represent most likely the buyer, because you usually have a longer relationship with the seller, but to represent one of these clients of Keller Williams, and so that they get the full negotiating power that they expect. But that's the
Okay.
downfall of dual agency. Nobody gets the representation that they want or expect.
And also,
So is the
Dan,
best, I'm sorry, go ahead.
well, I just was going to quickly comment that a lot of people forget the fact that you can write as a seller's agent and write the offer for the buyer with full representation to the seller and write as a seller's agent in that scenario that you just described.
Right.
So don't
Yeah.
forget that is an option.
The buyer becomes a
So
customer.
is that a good option, or is that, so, right, I can, you hear this all the time. You have a listing and then somebody calls the sign and they don't have an agent and they just want to, they go through it and you write an offer for them. I mean, obviously, if you disclose to them, you know, I'm working on behalf of the seller, I can absolutely write this offer for you, but my job here is to represent them.
And the buyer's okay with that and to remain as a customer, and then absolutely it becomes their decision.
Got it. Is the best practice though to advise them of, I mean, advise them to like work with, you know, obviously say we have another agent that we can work to help represent you on the buying side? Or, I mean, you don't want to take advantage of people because they are your client and not a customer, right?
Right.
And you know, if I have a listing and and someone is writing an offer and I'm not going to advise them on the offer that they can write because we don't have an agency relationship with it. But I guess from a ethical standpoint, doesn't it feel more appropriate that you advise them to work with an agent?
Right. I totally believe that. I was practicing when all of buyer agency became new to the state of Wisconsin. And at that time, people really didn't understand what it meant to be represented, to be negotiated. Today, there's still a lot of people, and unfortunately, agents that don't understand the difference of the representation that buyer agency gives. But in today's real estate world, more and more and more buyers and sellers, but especially buyers, want representation. They want to have a realtor in the boxing ring for them, boxing with the listing agent. They don't want to be in the boxing ring with the listing agent. They want somebody to
100%.
negotiate with them. And that's why I really don't like dual agency, because I think people today want representation. But anyway.
Now, the reason why people would do that is because, are you getting all 6%? If you're on the listing side and you're
the reason why an agent would want to have both sides, yes, they would.
You're getting 6% on it. Yeah. Or whatever your listing fee is.
Yeah, but if you choose a designated agent, you can do that in many ways. I mean, sometimes all you're doing is having them write the offer, just negotiate the offer. And you take over from that point on in a neutral position. But the negotiation is basically done with the offer and the counter offers. Maybe some negotiations done with the inspection. And if you want a designated agent to come in and just negotiate, which is what that representation is, it doesn't have to mean you're splitting your commission 50-50 with that other person. It can mean, you know, 10%, it can mean a dinner certificate, it can mean whatever.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
That helps.
I have a question about that too.
Yes.
So, can you hear me? So, if I'm the listing agent and I'm representing the seller, and then a person comes to the open house and they want to write an offer and they're not represented already, then do I still, so now I'm representing both of them. And so my client is the seller and the buyer is a customer. Do I still have them sign buyer agency?
No, you have them sign disclosure to customer. And
Got
there's
it. Okay. Thanks.
form, you have them sign that form, and then that form has to be sent with your offer.
Got it. Makes sense.
Disclosure to customer. Okay. Okay, I'll go on. As I said, I'm just pulling out standards of practices in Article 1 right now of duties to clients and customers, the ones that I felt are relatable to what we're hearing these days. Realtors, in response to inquiries from buyers or cooperating brokers, shall, with the seller's approval, disclose the existence of offers on the property. Okay, now remember, in response to inquiries, the broker shall, if the seller is okay with it, to disclose the existence of offers. Yes, we have offers. You don't have to say, yes, we have 10 offers, or yes, we have 1 offer. You just say, yes, we have offers on the table. And if asked whether the offers, this is clicker, and if asked whether the offers were obtained by the listing agent, another licensee in the listing firm, or cooperating. Say you want to write a offer on a Shore West property, and the listing agent, who's a Shore West agent, says, yes, we have offers on the table. And you can ask, are any of the offers yours? Or are any of the offers other Shore West offers? It can be interpreted as being a little snarky, but you do have the permission to ask that question. And sometimes that gives you information. Realtors shall not access or use or permit or enable others to access or use listed property in terms or conditions other than those authorized by the seller. And I threw that one in there because the Board of Realtors is coming down really hard on agents. They've been warning for years, but now they're fining heavily any agents that allow a buyer or a client to go in to a listed property without them or without good other representation. So it's in the Code of Ethics, and I'm telling you, the Realtor Board is very strict about it with fines if you do. Okay. Now we're in Article 2. That was a summary of 16 standards of practices in Article 1. Now we're in Article 2, and it's only this shot. It's mainly about realtors shall avoid exaggeration, misrepresentation, or concealment of pertinent facts relating to the property or the transaction. This is all about disclosure of adverse material facts, and that you shall disclose them. But in the second paragraph, it explains you are not obligated to disclose adverse facts. You shall only be obligated to disclose and discover adverse facts reasonably apparent to someone with expertise in those areas or real estate. Article 2 does not impose upon the realtor the obligation of expertise in other professional or technical disciplines. So it doesn't mean you have to be a plumber or a roofer or an electrician to disclose adverse material facts that you've observed in the house, because you don't have the expertise in that. But you do have the expertise if you see a leaning foundation wall, or if you see water stains around the basement walls, and the seller is not disclosing anything about them. Then you as a realtor do have the obligation to disclose those adverse facts. And that's what's in Article 2. Okay. Article 3 deals with the distinction between cooperation and compensation. And this is a real shocker to some people. And being on the Professional Standards Board, A lot of cases that we hear are on procuring cause. And for some agents who don't understand what it means to lose procuring cause in a deal, they find out when they realize that they have an empty envelope at closing, or they're not even invited to closing. The idea is we all have a duty to cooperate with one another, and that's through our MLS, but we don't have a duty, we don't have an obligation to compensate one another. And so they say the obligation to cooperate does not include the obligation to share commissions, fees, or typo, otherwise compensate the broker. So that's the idea, and it usually comes up in procuring cause, that you may have good cooperation with a listing agent, think everything's fine, and then you realize you're not being paid a commission because of procuring cause. So it's a phrase that we use a lot in professional standards, the distinction between cooperation and compensation. Okay.
When would this come up? Like when I look at a listing,
Mm-hmm.
so Dan again, when I look at a listing, I'm always looking at the, the commission for the buy
Co-broke.
side, right?
Right.
The co-broke fee. Is there, if it's not listed there or it's a 0%, obviously I understand that. But if it says, let's say 2.4%, in the listing, is there another way that this could come up that it's actually not 2.4%?
Well, and back in that Article 3, it says if it's not in the best interest of the client, and that, like any other law rule, is vague of what really is the interest of the client. But with my experience, all I've seen where they do not compensate is under procuring cause. It would have to be something really unusual and very odd for them not to compensate what they have listed in MLS, something that would really be hurting their client for some reason. But procuring cause does take away that opportunity to be compensated.
Where would that, on the buying side, how would you know that? Would that be would they call that out specifically in
Call
some
what?
type of,
That you're not going to be compensated?
yeah.
No, I mean, sometimes you don't know. You think everything's fine. You go through write the offer, negotiate the offer, do the whole inspection thing, get the loan in, all the sort of stuff, get ready to go to closing, and sorry, Charlie, no commission. Because they say that your buyer went through the house originally with the listing agent or several times, brought their family through, all the situations that happen in losing procuring cause. But if it's proven that you've actually lost procuring cause with that buyer, it doesn't, no matter how many hours you've put in with them and all that you've done,
Right.
You're not compensated. And you can go to arbitration about it.
I mean, I guess then the question is, how do you protect yourself from that? I guess having honest conversations with your buyer to ask
Right.
them, have you gone through this before? Do you have do you have an agency agreement with somebody else? Whatnot.
Totally.
Right.
And educate them to what that means. Educate them about
Okay.
open houses and all those things.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Article 4 is talking about really profiting off your clients. There are some situations, and I really don't know of many, but I know there are some, where realtors shall not acquire an interest in or buy or present offers from themselves, any member of their immediate family, their firms, or any member thereof without making their true position known to the owner or the owner's agent. So if you are buying property, writing an offer on something, you have to say that you are a licensed realtor in the state of Wisconsin. In your offer, it has to be in writing. In selling property on their own, you try to do a FISBO, which is against your independent contractor agreement, they shall reveal their ownership or interest in writing to the purchaser. So if you are selling by owner and you have the ability to do so, you have to disclose that you are a licensed realtor in the state of Wisconsin. Can't hide the fact. Okay, next one. Article 5, realtors should not undertake to provide professional services concerning a property or its value where they have a present or contemplated interest, and such an interest is, unless such an interest is disclosed. Same sort of idea. You can't be a silent partner. You can't be hiding in the backgrounds when you're involved in a property that or a value of a property where you may be in conflict with the public or clients and customers. And next, Article 6, realtors shall not accept any commission, rebate, or profit on expenditures made for their client without the client's knowledge and consent. All of this, and just to kind of wrap these up, they're pretty similar, but the idea is your duties to clients and customers, part 1 of the Code of Ethics, means that you have to put your clients' interests above yourselves. Your commission, your compensation, how many hours you worked, how hard you worked, how difficult the buyer is, does not affect the fact that you have to put your clients' priorities, your clients' interests above your own. And it's something that you hear and see every once in a while, where the real estate agent is the realtor, is thinking more about the amount of his commission than the success of his client. And here in the Code of Ethics, they make it quite clear in several articles. In Article 7, realtors shall not accept compensation from more than one party without disclosure to all parties and the informed consent of the realtor's client. You can't do side deals on a deal with your client. Article 8, any monies coming into the possession of a realtor, this is basically for independent or broker owns, but it's just saying you have to keep monies from a client that are going into being held for your client, have to go into a trust fund, an escrow in a separate account. And we're covered in that because Keller Williams has a trust account and the trust account through MLS, but it really deals with realtors who have a small operation on their own. They have to have a trust account. In Article 9, and this is a very special one that I like to tout all the time, is avoid writing obscure or vague offers. Avoid writing obscure or vague testing contingencies in your offer. Specify what you want to have tested. But the general article says, realtors, for the protection of all parties, including your customers and clients, shall assure that all agreements related to real estate transactions are in writing, in clear and understandable language, expressing specific terms and conditions of the parties. And then when anybody signs any agreement, electronically or hand signed, a copy of that agreement shall be furnished to spell check to each person. So it's something that I have been challenged with a lot of agents over the years in keeping them from writing vague or unspecific offers, because basically it comes down to the point that they're unenforceable. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's it.
Who, what, where, why, and what if.
Yes, exactly. So I'm going to, at the sales meeting tomorrow, I'm going to give just a short summary of duties to customers and clients, and the ones that I think really are relatable to all of us. I went a little more in depth with today, but I appreciate your joining in. Any questions or discussions about anything?
Yeah, or general questions too, guys.
Mhm. Losing my voice.
Who's the iPhone on here? Which agent is this? Okay.
I think the iPhone was Dan.
No, he was Sherry.
Yeah, Sherry. No, you just spoke.
No, I'm Sherry.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Amy Merrick. I'm usually on my computer, but I had to be on my phone today.
Oh, got it.
Hi.
Okay. Hi, Amy.
Good.
Hi.
Caitlin, you don't have any questions?
Not that I can think of right now.
Okay, good. Good. Well, as I said, Steph and I are reviewing the Code of Ethics in its 3 big sections, just under the headline of protecting your reputation. It's one of the most important things we have in this business. Our real estate family in the metropolitan Milwaukee area is small. We think it's large, but it's actually very small. And many, many, many agents know all the other agents or most of the other agents. We work in tight communities, like in the Wauwatosa community or the North Shore community or the Lake District community. Most of the agents know one another. And by your actions, you develop a reputation within that community. And your reputation is based on lots of things. You know, how good are you at negotiating? How good are you or not so good are you at pricing your listings? You know, your reputation and how you react in transactions with co-brokes and other agents within your own firm, you do develop a reputation. And the reputation isn't solely yours because you're at Keller Williams. The reputation is also transferred to Keller Williams. So that's why we just thought it was in this light of very competitive market and kind of tough negotiations to keep mind on what preserves a good reputation.
100%.
Yeah.
And that all transfers to your clients too, because how you
Yes.
are among your colleagues could result in or not result in an accepted offer for a client. So,
Right. Well, I think Charlie was talking about last week or something that when seller and the listing agent are looking at offers, maybe multiple offers on the table, sometimes the reputation of one of those agents that have written an offer comes into play on the choice. They may say, oh, I know this agent, you know, they're really good, they're very fair, they, you know, write good offers or whatever. So building your reputation among your colleagues and among the public is, it always helps grow your business.
1000%.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. Well, remember that we are here Thursdays, 11:30 to 12 for any other questions, but we're here all the time too, but for general questions, don't forget about Thursdays, 11:30 to 12.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.